Hello, and thank you for watching Accelerate with Nerdio. In today's lesson, I'm going to walk through adding an existing WVD deployment to Nerdio Manager for MSP. Specifically with my existing deployment, I've got Azure Active Directory domain services already in place. I've got existing networking and existing Azure file shares for FS Logic. So I'm simply going to point back to these resources and start to manage them with Nerdio Manager for MSP. And as always, help.nerdio.net for access to all of our amazing content. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So I'm here in Nerdio Manager for MSP. I'm going to hit Add Account. First thing it's going to ask me to do is connect to my Azure AD tenant. So I'm going to go ahead and connect, and I'll hit pause for just a moment while I do that. Just to quickly check here, I'm doing permissions to get that set up. Go ahead and hit that consent. And we can see it's grabbing information. We'll notice that our access is timed for a 60-minute expiration. So, we will lose that token access after 60 minutes. I can name the account. I'm just going to go ahead and call it this default name that I've got from the tenant. I will select my subscription. So again, this is the subscription where those WVD assets live. And then I'm going to indicate my Active Directory setup, which in this case is existing Azure Active Directory domain services. And I'll go ahead and hit Save and Next. And this process takes maybe 1 to 2 minutes to complete. And it's finished the first step, and now it's moving on to the second step. And this is where you can really get creative using Nerdio Manager for MSP, right? We've connected to the tenant. We're going to use existing Azure ADDS, but I could create completely new networking and FS Logic and other resources if maybe I'm doing net new WVD, but I'm using existing Azure AD. In our case, we're using existing everything, but just know that once you have your consideration of the tenants and the directory or identity, there is some flexibility in the next steps when it comes to networking and storage. So in this case, my Azure region I focus in is West US. And I'm actually going to, as I mentioned, use an existing resource group. So I've got my Nerdio one right here. And then I'm going to use an existing network LAN, which I already have set up. Again, I could create a new one if needed. I'll hit Save and Next. And again, this process just takes a moment or two. And we can see everything down here as it's running in real time, right? Here was that service principal we created for that 60-minute window. And there we go, networking's done. Let's look at that for a second, right? So, we can see we linked to that network. We got it out of the subscription. Perfect. So now we're going to point back to that existing Azure AD service. I'm going to hit pause and fill this out. Give me just a moment. Actually, I can make this easy. I'll even show you guys, right? So I'm grabbing the domain because this is the one I'm using right here. I'm actually going to use the same admin username. I'll pop my password in. Now, the next one here, the WVD host OU path, I'm actually going to leave this default because that is how I used it initially, right? I actually let it create in the computer's container before adding the Nerdio Manager. If you've got something different in place, or if you're going to be using something different, you'll want to specify that here. I'm going to hit Save and Next. And again, this will probably take 1 to 5 minutes. And that actually flew by. That just took a second there. So now we're going to select our Azure file share. Again, we could create new. We could be pointing back to a file server with the UNC path, but in this example, we're going to use existing Azure files. And I've got it right here. It's called Department. And I'm going to hit Save and Done. And this will just take a moment as well. And while that's running right, we can even look at those details in real time. And we can see that that has completed. And let's just look at those details again real quick. There we go. And perfect, I now have an account, right? So Nerdio Partner Solutions Customer A, I can see when it was created in Nerdio Manager for MSP. I can see tenant information, I can see it's active, and I can start to manage it. Now, what's really cool here is we'll jump in. If I go to WVD and host pools, I can see all of those assets that lived there already. So this is a fantastic way to have existing WVD assets and be able to start managing them with Nerdio Manager for MSP. As always, help.nerdio.net for access to all of our amazing content, and have a great day.